Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. The information presented here reflects the aviation industry at the time of recording and should not be considered as financial, legal, or direct career advice. Pilot training, hiring requirements, and salaries are subject to change. Always consult with certified flight instructors, aviation career counselors, and financial advisors before making any significant career or financial decisions. The term commercial pilot is one of the most profoundly misunderstood phrases in the United States. When you hear it, you probably picture a pilot in a starched white shirt with 4 stripes on their shoulder, sitting in the cockpit of a Boeing 787, flying 300 people to Paris. And while that is a commercial pilot, that image is also the single biggest reason why thousands of aspiring aviators waste years of their life and tens of thousands of dollars chasing the wrong goal. The simple, expensive mistake is confusing the license with the ultimate job. They hear commercial pilot and think airline pilot, and that fundamental misunderstanding creates a blind spot that hides dozens of other high-paying, exciting aviation careers. This video is designed to fix that permanently. This is your definitive guide to what a commercial pilot in the USA actually is. We are going to rip away the jargon and the confusion and give you a crystal clear roadmap. You will learn exactly what the commercial pilot license is, what it legally allows you to do, and most importantly, what it doesn't do. We will break down the crucial difference between getting the license and getting the airline job, a difference that can save you from catastrophic financial mistakes. By the end of this presentation, you won't just understand the terminology, you'll understand the strategy. You'll see the chessboard of the aviation industry and know how to make the right moves for your own career goals. Whether that's flying for a major airline or one of the many other incredible jobs you might not even know exist. Let's get right to it. The Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, defines a commercial pilot certificate as the qualification that permits the holder to act as the pilot in command of an aircraft for compensation or hire. That's it. Read that again: for compensation or hire. It is, quite literally, a license to get paid to fly an airplane. It is not a license to fly for Delta, United, or American. It is not a license that automatically qualifies you for a specific type of aircraft. It is the fundamental, foundational certificate that turns your passion for flying from an expensive hobby into a profession. It's the moment you can legally start earning a paycheck in a cockpit. Think of it like this: getting a law degree and passing the bar exam makes you a lawyer. It gives you the legal right to practice law and charge clients for your services. But it doesn't automatically make you a partner at a top Wall Street firm. That requires years of experience, specialization, and building a reputation. The bar exam is the gateway, not the destination. The commercial pilot license is the exact same thing in the world of aviation. It's your gateway to a professional career. It's the essential ticket you need to even get in the game. What you do with that ticket, where you go, and how fast you get there, that's the part nobody talks about, and that's what we're going to uncover. To truly grasp this, you need to understand the 3 primary building blocks of a pilot's core qualifications. Every professional pilot in the United States builds their career on a 3-layer foundation. First, there's the private pilot license, or PPL. This is your license to learn and to fly for fun. With a PPL, you can rent a small plane, take your friends and family up on a weekend, and fly across the country as long as you're not getting paid for it. You split the costs, but you can't make a profit. It's purely for the love of flight. The second layer is the instrument rating. This is an add-on to your private or commercial license. Think of this as your license to fly in the clouds. It trains you to fly the aircraft solely by reference to the instruments in the cockpit, without needing to see the ground or the horizon. This is not just a critical safety skill. It's a non-negotiable requirement for any professional flying job. Without it, you're grounded every time the weather gets a little bit cloudy. With it, you can operate in the same complex, all-weather system that the airlines use. And then we have the third layer, the commercial pilot license, the CPL. This is the one that changes everything. To get it, you have to meet a higher standard of knowledge, skill, and experience. You need a minimum of 250 flight hours in the US, though most people have more. And you have to pass a much more rigorous written exam and practical flight test, a check ride, than you did for your private license. You're held to a professional standard because you are now seeking the privilege of being paid for your skills, carrying passengers or cargo who are putting their trust in you. So, when you have your commercial pilot license, what can you actually do? This is where the world opens up. You are now legally qualified for a huge range of jobs. You can be a flight instructor, teaching the next generation of pilots. You can fly for a small air charter company, taking business clients to meetings or families on vacation. You can become a tow pilot pulling gliders into the air. You can do aerial photography, pipeline patrol, or agricultural flying dusting crops. You can fly skydivers or work as a corporate pilot for a private company. Each of these jobs has different requirements, different lifestyles, and different pay scales. And notice what's not on that immediate list. Flying a 200-seat Airbus for a major airline. Why? Because the airlines have their own set of requirements that go far, far beyond the FAA minimums for a commercial pilot license. To even be considered by a major US airline, you need a different, more advanced license called an Airline Transport Pilot Certificate, or ATP. And the main gateway to an ATP certificate is experience, specifically 1,500 hours of flight time. This is the most important number in aviation, 1,500. You can get your commercial license at 250 hours, but the airlines won't look at you until you have 1,500 hours. This creates what's known as the hour-building gap. You have the license to get paid, the CPL, but you don't have enough experience for the top-tier jobs. So the real question for an aspiring pilot isn't just, how do I get my commercial license? It's, how do I get my commercial license, and then build the next 1,250 hours of quality flight time to become competitive for the airlines, without going completely broke? And the answer to that question lies in all those jobs I just mentioned. Most pilots in the United States spend several years after getting their commercial license working as flight instructors, or flying for smaller charter or cargo operations to build that time. They use their CPL to work their way up. They're flying, they're learning, they're getting paid, and every single hour they log is a step closer to that 1,500-hour goal. This is the grind. This is the part of the journey that separates those who make it from those who dream about it. It's not about just getting the license. It's about having a smart strategy to bridge the gap between 250 and 1,500 hours. So let's reset our thinking. A commercial pilot is not a job title. It is a certificate. It is a qualification. It is the key that unlocks the door to a professional career in aviation. The job you get with that key is up to you, your goals, and your strategy. Thinking that getting your CPL is the finish line is like thinking that getting your college degree guarantees you a CEO position. The reality is, it's the starting gun. It's where the real race begins. And understanding this distinction is the first and most critical step toward building a successful and financially viable career in the sky. So let's talk about that race. You've just passed your commercial check ride. You have that crisp, new certificate in your hand. The ink is barely dry. You have proven to an FAA examiner that you can fly an airplane to a set of exacting standards, that you can handle emergencies, that you understand aerodynamics, weather, and regulations on a professional level. You are officially a commercial pilot. And the very first thing you realize is that you can't actually fly for a major airline. This is the single biggest point of confusion for the public, and even for aspiring pilots. They hear commercial pilot, and they picture a captain with 4 stripes on their shoulder, welcoming them aboard a flight to London. That is not the reality. Not even close. That captain you're picturing holds a different, much higher grade of certificate. The Airline Transport Pilot Certificate, or ATP. Think of it like the difference between graduating from medical school and becoming a chief of surgery. You might be a doctor, but you are not stepping into that operating room to lead a complex procedure on day 1. There is a long, grueling residency in between. For pilots, that residency is a period of hour building. In the United States, to even be eligible for an ATP certificate, the one required to fly for an airline, you need to have a minimum of 1,500 hours of flight time. 1,500! When you pass your commercial pilot check ride, you will have, on average, about 250 hours. So you have this brand new commercial license that says you can be paid to fly, but a colossal 1,250-hour gap between you and the flight deck of an Airbus A320. That is the great filter of aviation. It's a chasm that every single airline pilot in this country has had to cross. And the commercial pilot certificate isn't the bridge. It's just the permit to start building the bridge, 1 hour at a time. So what do? What jobs are available for a low-time, 250-hour commercial pilot? This is where the real work begins. This is the journeyman phase of your career. And it's where you'll earn your stripes in the most literal sense. The jobs aren't glamorous. The pay is often terrible. But the experience, it is absolutely priceless. The most common path by far is becoming a flight instructor. You get your commercial license, and then you almost immediately get another certificate called a Certified Flight Instructor, or CFI. Now you can teach others how to fly. This is the bedrock of the aviation training industry. You sit in the right seat of a Cessna 172, day in and day out, teaching students everything from their first takeoff to their own commercial check ride. And let's be clear, this is not just a boring teaching gig. This is a trial by fire. You are flying with people who are actively trying to make mistakes. It is their job to learn, and your job to catch those mistakes before they become catastrophic. A student might stall the airplane too close to the ground. They might land way too fast. They might forget to lower the landing gear. And you, the CFI, have to be the safety net, the calm voice, the expert who can instantly take control and turn a potentially lethal situation into a teachable moment. You build hundreds, sometimes thousands of hours this way. It's exhausting, it's repetitive, but it hones your fundamental flying skills to a razor's edge. You will see more ways for a landing to go wrong in 6 months as a CFI than most airline pilots will see in their entire careers. But maybe being an instructor isn't for you. What else is there? Welcome to the world of banner towing. You've seen them at the beach, flying low and slow, pulling a giant advertisement behind them. That is a 250-hour commercial pilot job. It sounds like a fun summer gig, but the level of skill required is immense. The takeoff involves flying at a very low altitude, dragging a grappling hook, and perfectly snagging the banner off the ground without stalling or crashing. Then you spend hours droning along the coastline, managing the drag, fighting the wind, all while flying just a few hundred feet above the waves. It teaches you an incredible amount about energy management and precision flying in a high-drag environment. Or perhaps you're more of a lone wolf. You could get a job in aerial survey or pipeline patrol. This is the definition of time building. Your job is to fly a small single-engine aircraft in a perfectly straight line, for hours day after day. In aerial survey, you might be operating sophisticated camera equipment that's mapping terrain for a construction company or a government agency. In pipeline patrol, you're flying low over hundreds of miles of oil or gas pipelines, looking for leaks, damage, or unauthorized construction. The flying can be monotonous, a true test of your discipline and focus. It's long stretches of boredom punctuated by moments of critical observation. But you are out there, on your own, building command experience, making decisions about weather and fuel, and truly being the sole pilot in command. And then there's the adrenaline-fueled option, flying skydivers. This is one of the most demanding jobs for a low-time pilot. Your entire mission profile is a rapid maximum performance climb to 10 or 12,000 feet, followed by a rapid near-dive descent back to the airport to pick up the next load. You're not just a pilot, you're a crucial part of the skydiving operation. You have to fly a precise line to put the jumpers over the correct drop zone, accounting for wind drift. You have to manage the weight and balance of people constantly shifting around in the back of a loud, vibrating aircraft. It's fast-paced, it's loud, and it forces you to become intimately familiar with your aircraft's performance envelope. You'll do more takeoffs and landings in a single weekend than some pilots do in a month. Flight instructor, banner tower, pipeline patrol, skydive pilot. These are the classic, entry-level commercial pilot jobs. There are others too, flying traffic watch for a local news station, doing aerial photography, or even dusting crops in some parts of the country. Notice the common thread here. None of these jobs involve flying passengers from New York to Chicago. They are all specialized, single-pilot operations. They are designed to do one thing: build flight time. The pay is not going to make you rich. In fact, in your first year or two, you might be making less than you would working a retail job. You'll likely be earning somewhere between $25,000 to maybe $50,000 a year, depending on the job and location. You're paying your dues. You're trading low pay for the invaluable currency of the aviation world: logged flight hours. This period, this grind from 250 hours to 1,500 hours, is what truly forges you as a professional aviator. You learn to handle real-world weather, not just the simulated scenarios from your training. You learn to deal with maintenance issues at remote, small-town airports where there's no one to help you. You learn about fatigue, about decision-making when you're tired, and about the immense responsibility of being the sole person in charge of an aircraft. This is the phase that separates the pilots who make it from those who wash out. It's not about the license itself. It's about the resilience, determination, and skill you build while using it. How you navigate this period, the jobs you take, and the reputation you build will define the entire trajectory of your career. Because there are hidden traps in these early jobs, traps that can stall a career indefinitely, and there are also overlooked opportunities that can catapult you toward your goals faster than you ever thought possible. And understanding the difference between the two is everything. Let's start with the most common, almost default, first job for a new commercial pilot: Certified Flight Instructor, or CFI. For many, this is the only path they even consider. You spend all this money to learn to fly, and now you're going to get paid, albeit not very much, to teach others to do the same thing. On the surface, it makes perfect sense. You're flying, you're logging hours, and you're building experience. But this is where the first and perhaps most dangerous trap lies. I call it the comfort zone prison. When you become a CFI, you become the expert in the cockpit. Your students look up to you. You master the same maneuvers, fly in and out of the same handful of local airports, and you get into a rhythm. The pay is steady aflow. The work is predictable. And slowly, without you even realizing it, the urgency to move on begins to fade. You tell yourself you'll start applying for bigger jobs at 500 hours, then 750, then 1,000. I have personally known brilliant pilots who became CFIs for a year or two, and are still there a decade later. They got comfortable. They built a life around a low-paying job, and the golden handcuffs, as cheap as they were, clicked shut. They stopped networking, stopped pushing, and their career stalled on the ramp of a local flight school. Burnout is the other jailer in this prison. Teaching steep turns and slow flight for the 800th time can drain the passion out of even the most dedicated aviator. The trap isn't being a CFI. The trap is thinking of it as a long-term destination instead of a temporary bridge. But, for the pilot who sees it for what it is, the CFI role is an unparalleled opportunity. It is a networking goldmine. Think about it. Who are your students? They're often successful people, doctors, business owners, lawyers who are learning to fly for fun. They are well connected. If you are a professional, sharp, and competent instructor, they will remember you. I've seen CFIs get offered jobs flying for a student's company simply because they did their job well. You're also constantly interacting with other pilots, mechanics, and designated pilot examiners, or DPEs. These are the gatekeepers of the industry. A good reputation at this level is priceless. The other hidden opportunity is mastery. You don't truly know something until you can teach it. As a CFI, you are forced to understand the physics of flight, aerodynamics, and regulations on a level you never did as a student. You're not just flying the plane. You're dissecting every maneuver, every decision in real time. This builds a foundation of knowledge and skill that is rock solid. The pilot who treats the CFI job as a 1 to 2 year strategic mission to build a network and achieve true mastery of their craft isn't just building hours. They're building a reputation and a skill set that will make them a top-tier candidate for what comes next. Now let's look at some of the other common time-building jobs. These are the ones that often sound a little more adventurous, a little more cinematic. Banner towing and aerial survey. You see the banner tow planes cruising low and slow over a packed beach on a summer day. It looks like the life. Aerial survey or pipeline patrol has you flying low-level cross-country routes, often in very cool, high-performance single-engine planes, mapping terrain or inspecting infrastructure. The trap here is different. It's not comfort. It's the trap of the niche skill cul-de-sac. These jobs require a very specific set of skills. In banner towing, you become an expert at picking up and dropping a banner, and flying precisely at 500 feet over a coastline. In pipeline patrol, you become a master of low-level navigation and spotting anomalies on the ground. These are demanding skills, no question. But ask yourself, how do these skills translate to flying a jet at 40,000 feet? The answer is not very well. Airlines look for instrument flying experience, crew coordination, and experience in complex airspace. Many of these low-level jobs involve very little of that. They are often single-pilot, fair-weather operations. So while you're building total time, you might not be building the right kind of time. It's like a bodybuilder who only ever trains their left bicep. Sure, that one muscle is impressive, but their overall strength is imbalanced, and they aren't prepared for a real-world strength competition. Furthermore, many of these jobs are highly seasonal. You might work like crazy for 6 months and then be unemployed for the other 6. If you don't have a strategic plan for that off-season, you're just treading water. The opportunity in these jobs, however, is for the pilot who is disciplined. If you can fly banners all summer and then use the winter to get your multi-engine rating or network like a fiend, it can work. The real, hidden opportunity of aerial survey, in particular, is the sheer amount of cross-country flight time you can log. You're not just circling an airport. You are flying from state to state, dealing with real weather, and learning to be a self-sufficient, resourceful pilot. That kind of command experience, being alone in the cockpit, hundreds of miles from home with a deadline to meet, is invaluable. It builds the kind of judgment and decision-making that can't be taught in a simulator. If you can articulate that experience in an interview, it can be a huge advantage. It shows you're not just a pilot who can pass a check ride. You're a pilot who can manage an operation. Finally, let's talk about the dark horse jobs. The ones that many new pilots don't even know exist or are too intimidated to pursue. I'm talking about being a skydive pilot or a ferry pilot. These are the high-risk, high-reward pathways. The trap is obvious. Flying jumpers can be a high-pressure, high-cycle environment. You're making dozens of takeoffs and landings a day, climbing to altitude as fast as possible, and then diving back down. It can be mechanically brutal on the aircraft and mentally taxing on the pilot. The culture at some drop zones can be, let's say, less than professional. It's easy to get sucked into a frat house vibe and lose sight of your professional goals. Ferrying planes, delivering a brand new or newly sold aircraft to its owner, has the trap of inconsistency. It's not a steady job. It's a series of freelance gigs. You have to be a hustler, a small business owner, and a logistics expert all in one. It's not for the faint of heart. But the opportunities, they are massive. Flying skydivers is perhaps the single fastest way to build flight time, period. And if you can get on at a drop zone that flies a turbine aircraft like a Cessna Caravan or a Twin Otter, you are hitting the jackpot. You're not just building time. You're building coveted turbine time, which is a major discriminator for future jobs. You become incredibly proficient at aircraft handling in a way that few other jobs can teach. Ferry flying is the ultimate trial by fire. You might be asked to fly an unfamiliar aircraft type across the entire country, navigating mountain ranges, massive weather systems, and busy airspace, all by yourself. The amount of real-world, problem-solving experience you gain in a single one-week ferry trip can be more valuable than 6 months of flying in circles around your local airport. It demonstrates a level of confidence, airmanship, and resourcefulness that is off the charts. It's a career accelerator. So what's the right choice? There isn't one. The right choice is understanding that this time-building phase isn't just about getting to 1,500 hours. It's a strategic campaign. You have to be brutally honest with yourself. Are you a people person who can network? The CFI route might be your golden ticket. Are you a disciplined loner who wants to see the country from 1,000 feet? Aerial survey could be perfect. Do you want to build turbine time faster than anyone else and can handle the pressure? Go knock on the door of a busy drop zone. The key is to choose your path with intention. Don't just take the first job that comes along. Analyze the traps, identify the hidden opportunities, and pick the job that doesn't just build your flight hours, but builds the story you're going to tell in your dream job interview. But all these jobs have one thing in common. They are a means to an end. They are all about collecting a very specific type of currency, not just flight hours but the right kind of flight hours. Because the industry has a gatekeeper, a barrier that separates the low-time pilots from the serious career professionals. And that barrier is built out of 2 words: multi-engine and turbine. Multi-engine and turbine. These aren't just types of airplanes. They are the keys to the kingdom. Let's break it down. Up to this point, almost every pilot has learned to fly in a single-engine, piston-powered aircraft. Think of a Cessna 172 or a Piper Archer. It has one engine, usually in the front, that works a lot like the engine in your car. It uses pistons moving up and down to turn a crankshaft, which spins a propeller. It's reliable, it's relatively simple, and it's the bedrock of flight training. But it's not what the pros fly. A multi-engine aircraft, just as the name implies, has more than one engine. Usually 2, sometimes more. This isn't just for more power or speed, although that's part of it. The number one reason for having a second engine is redundancy. It's about safety. If one engine quits, you have another one to get you safely to an airport. But flying with one engine out is a completely different beast than flying with both of them humming along. It's a dynamic, high-stakes challenge, and proving you can handle it is the entire point of the multi-engine rating. Then there's turbine. This is the real leap. Forget pistons. A turbine engine or a jet engine is a different animal entirely. Instead of contained explosions in a cylinder, a turbine engine is a continuous, controlled burn. It sucks in massive amounts of air, compresses it, ignites it with fuel in a constant inferno, and blasts the exhaust out the back. In a turbojet or a turbofan, that blast provides direct thrust. In a turboprop, that power spins a turbine which, through a gearbox, turns a propeller. It's smoother, vastly more powerful, more reliable, and it operates at altitudes where piston engines can't even breathe. It is the heart of modern aviation. So when an airline or a corporate flight department looks at your logbook, they aren't just looking for the total number at the bottom. They are scanning for two columns: multi-engine time and turbine time, because that's the world they live in. They don't care if you have 1,000 hours in a single-engine piston plane if the job is flying a twin-engine jet. That experience, while valuable for basic stick and rudder skills, doesn't translate. It's like being an expert go-kart driver applying to be a Formula One racer. You know how to steer and brake, but the systems, the speed, the environment, it's a whole new universe. Getting that first block of multi-engine time is a pilot's first taste of this professional world. The multi-engine rating is notoriously short, intense, and expensive. You'll typically do it in about 10 to 15 hours of flight time over the course of a week. The entire training curriculum is built around one thing: failure. Your instructor will, over and over again, simulate an engine failure. Right after takeoff, during a climb, in cruise, on an instrument approach. Your job is to master a critical life-saving dance. The moment an engine quits, the plane will try to yaw and roll violently toward the dead engine. Your first instinct is to fight it with the yoke, but the real control comes from your feet on the rudder pedals. The mantra is drilled into you: dead foot, dead engine. You have to stomp on the rudder pedal on the side of the good engine to keep the airplane flying straight. Then, a rapid-fire sequence of actions you must perform from memory. Identify which engine has failed. Verify it by slowly pulling back its throttle. Then feather the propeller, tilting the blades so they are edge onto the wind, stopping it from windmilling and creating massive drag. You have to do all this while cleaning up the airplane's configuration, talking to air traffic control, and navigating to a safe landing, all while your heart is pounding in your chest. The check ride for this rating is one of the most demanding tests a pilot will face. Passing it doesn't just add a line to your certificate. It fundamentally changes how you think about risk and emergency management. But even after you get the rating, you only have about 10 hours of multi-engine time. No one will hire you with that. And this brings us to the great soul-crushing paradox for every new commercial pilot. You need multi-engine and turbine time to get a job, but you need a job to get multi-engine and turbine time. This is the infamous chicken and egg problem of aviation. It's a wall that stops many aspiring pilots in their tracks. You have your commercial certificate, you're legally allowed to be paid to fly, but the jobs that pay a living wage require experience you can't afford to get on your own. Renting a multi-engine plane can cost $400 an hour or more. Turbine aircraft? Forget it. We're talking thousands per hour. So how do you solve it? You grind. This is the paying your dues phase of a pilot's career. And it's where creativity, networking, and a willingness to do the less than glamorous jobs pays off. The most common path by far is to become a flight instructor. A certificated flight instructor, or CFI. You get your instructor certificate and start teaching primary students how to fly the same single-engine planes you learned in. But the strategic goal is to get your multi-engine instructor rating, the MEI. Once you have that, the flight school can have you teach their multi-engine students. And now the magic happens. Someone else is paying for that $400 an hour airplane, and you, the instructor, are getting paid to sit in the right seat and log that precious multi-engine time. For thousands of airline pilots, this was their path. It's a low-paying, high-workload job, but it's a reliable way to build the exact kind of time the industry values. But what if instructing isn't for you? There are other paths, often more adventurous. You could become a skydive pilot. This is one of the best ways to get that coveted turbine time early on. Many skydiving operations use turbine aircraft like the Cessna Caravan or the de Havilland Twin Otter. The job is a repeating cycle: take off, climb like a rocket to 13,000 feet, kick the jumpers out, and perform a screaming tactical descent to land, pick up the next group, and do it all over again 10-15 times a day. The pay isn't great, but logging hundreds of hours of pilot in command turbine time is worth more than gold. Or maybe you find a job in aerial survey or pipeline patrol. This is demanding, monotonous work. You'll spend 8 hours a day flying a precise grid pattern over remote terrain, often at low altitudes. Many of these companies use high-performance, complex, or multi-engine aircraft. It's a fantastic way to build a lot of high-quality hours very quickly. You won't be home for dinner much, but your logbook will get fat in a hurry. There are other niche jobs too. Banner towing along the coasts, flying traffic watch for news stations, or the holy grail for a low-time pilot, finding a right seat job. This often happens in the corporate and charter world, flying smaller jets or turboprops. A company might need a second pilot for insurance or safety reasons, and they're willing to take on a low-time but professional and eager pilot to fill that role. This is where networking is everything. It's not about what you know, it's who you know. Getting a job like this can be a massive shortcut. putting you directly into the cockpit of a turbine aircraft, building the exact experience you need for the major airlines. This phase of your career is a strategic game. Every decision is weighed against one question. What kind of hours will this job give me? 100 hours flying a single-engine piston plane is fine, but 100 hours flying a multi-engine turboprop is a career accelerator. It's about understanding that not all flight time is created equal. You have to actively hunt for the experience that unlocks the next level. This is the crucible that forges professional pilots. It weeds out those who just want the glamour from those who are willing to do the work. It's a period of low pay, long hours, and constant learning. But for those who navigate it successfully, who build that critical multi-engine and turbine time, the next gateway begins to open. Because once you have the right kind of experience, you can set your sights on the certification that is the undisputed requirement for an airline career. The black belt of pilot licenses, the Airline Transport Pilot Certificate. And to get that, you need to conquer the single biggest number in aviation, the 1,500-hour rule. 1,500 hours. Let that number sink in. If you flew a typical training airplane, a Cessna 172 for 1,500 hours straight without stopping for fuel or sleep, you would fly for 62.5 days. You would circle the Earth more than 6 times. It is a monumental amount of time. And for a newly minted commercial pilot sitting there with their certificate in hand and maybe 250 hours in their logbook, it can feel like staring up at the sheer, icy face of Mount Everest. So why? Why this specific gigantic number? Where did it come from? It wasn't pulled out of thin air. It was written in the wake of a tragedy. The date was February 12, 2009. Colgan Air Flight 3407 was on approach to Buffalo, New York in icy winter conditions. The twin turboprop aircraft, a Dash 8 Q400, suddenly stalled and fell from the sky, crashing into a house. All 49 people on board and 1 person on the ground were killed. The investigation that followed sent shockwaves through the entire aviation industry. The National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, found that the primary cause was the flight crew's inappropriate response to the stall warnings. The pilots pulled back on the controls when they should have pushed forward, a fundamental error. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered unsettling facts. The captain, though having over 3,000 flight hours, had failed multiple check rides throughout his career. The first officer had less than 2,000 hours and had been earning a poverty-level wage, forcing her to commute across the country to get to work, likely leading to fatigue. The NTSB concluded that pilot experience, training, and fatigue were significant contributing factors. In response, the families of the victims of Flight 3407 launched an incredible, relentless campaign for aviation safety. They lobbied Congress, they told their stories, and they demanded change. The result was the Airline Safety and Federal Aviation Administration Extension Act of 2010. This landmark piece of legislation overhauled pilot training and qualification standards. And at its very core was the establishment of a new, higher standard for any pilot sitting in the cockpit of a US airline. Before this law, a pilot could theoretically be a first officer at a regional airline with as little as 250 hours. After this law, the minimum was raised to 1,500 hours, requiring them to hold an airline transport pilot or ATP certificate. The 1,500-hour rule wasn't just about logging time. It was designed to ensure that pilots arriving at an airline had a deep well of real-world experience. Experience flying in different weather at night, handling unforeseen circumstances, and making command decisions long before they were responsible for dozens or hundreds of lives. So, what exactly has to go into those 1,500 hours? It's not just flying around in circles. The FAA has specific requirements. To get an unrestricted ATP certificate, you need at least 500 hours of cross-country flight time. That's flying from one airport to another. You need 100 hours of night flying, which is a completely different world from flying during the day. You need 75 hours of actual or simulated instrument time, navigating solely by reference to your cockpit instruments. And crucially, you need 250 hours as the acting pilot in command, the one making the final decisions. This is where the journey truly begins for a commercial pilot. You have the license to get paid to fly, but you don't have the hours to get the job most people want. You are in what pilots call the time-building phase. You have to bridge the gap between 250 hours and 1,500 hours. And how do you do that? You get a job. By far, the most common, the most traditional, and the most well-trodden path is becoming a certified flight instructor, or a CFI. After getting your commercial certificate, you can immediately get your instructor certificate. This allows you to teach other people how to fly, and here's the magic part. While you are sitting in the right seat of that trainer, teaching a student how to land or navigate, that time counts in your logbook. You are getting paid, albeit not very much, to build the exact kind of flight time you need. Life as a CFI is a grind. It's early mornings pre-flighting a cold airplane on the ramp. It's long days flying back-to-back lessons, repeating the same maneuvers over and over. It's late nights signing off student logbooks. You'll deal with nervous first-time flyers, overconfident teenagers, and everything in between. You will have moments of sheer terror when a student makes a mistake and you have to take control. But you will also have moments of pure pride when you watch your student solo for the first time, or pass their own check ride. Being a CFI makes you a better pilot. It forces you to know the regulations and maneuvers inside and out, because you have to explain them clearly to someone else. It hammers home the fundamentals and exposes you to countless scenarios. Building that deep reservoir of experience the 1,500-hour rule was designed to create. But instructing isn't the only way. There are other time-building jobs, often called entry-level aviation careers, that are just as valuable. Think about banner towing, spending a summer flying low and slow along a coastline, dragging an advertisement behind you for beachgoers to see. It requires immense skill in slow flight handling and precision. Or what about pipeline patrol? Flying for hours at a low altitude, following hundreds of miles of oil or gas pipelines across the country, looking for leaks or damage. It's demanding, monotonous work that builds incredible endurance and scanning abilities. There's also aerial survey and photography, where pilots fly precise grid patterns to map terrain or take pictures for real estate or construction. This hones your skills in flying with extreme accuracy. And for the thrill seekers, there's being a jump pilot for a skydiving operation. Your entire job is to fly a plane full of people up to 13,000 feet, get them out the door, and then descend as quickly and efficiently as possible to do it all over again, sometimes a dozen times a day. Each of these jobs, instructor, banner tower, survey pilot, they're not glamorous. The pay is often low, the hours are long, and the airplanes are usually not state-of-the-art. But they are the crucible in which pilots are forged. This is where you learn to handle real-world weather, deal with maintenance issues, and develop the judgment that can't be taught in a textbook. This is where a 250-hour pilot becomes a 1,500-hour professional. Now you might be thinking, 1,500 hours? That's going to take years. And you're right. But there is a major exception to the rule. It's called a restricted ATP, or an RATP. The FAA recognized that while the 1,500-hour rule was a crucial safety net, not all flight time is created equal. They determined that pilots who went through highly structured, formal aviation training programs at universities or colleges might develop the necessary skills and knowledge with fewer total hours. So they created the RATP. If you graduate with a 4-year bachelor's degree from an FAA-approved university aviation program, you can get your RATP and be hired by an airline with only 1,000 total flight hours. That's a 500-hour shortcut. If you get a 2-year associate's degree from one of these approved programs, the minimum is lowered to 1,250 hours. This is a game changer. It creates a massive incentive for aspiring pilots to pursue a formal aviation degree. The structured curriculum, simulator training, and academic environment are seen by the FAA as a way to accelerate a pilot's development. And there's one more group that gets an even bigger reduction: military pilots. Given the incredibly rigorous and demanding nature of military flight training, former military pilots can qualify for an RATP with just 750 total flight hours. This creates a fundamental choice for every aspiring airline pilot in the United States. Do you go to a local flight school, get your certificates as quickly and cheaply as possible, and then grind it out as a flight instructor or banner tower all the way to 1,500 hours? Or do you invest in a 2- or 4-year university aviation degree, knowing that it will cost more upfront in tuition, but will get you to an airline interview with hundreds of fewer hours? There is no right or wrong answer. It's a personal calculation of time, money, and career goals. But regardless of the path you choose, the full 1,500 or the restricted 1,000, the goal is the same. You've climbed the mountain. You've put in the time. You have the experience, the logbook thick with entries, and the stories to back it up. You are finally eligible. Eligible to take the final step. Eligible to sit for the exams and the check ride that will earn you the pinnacle of pilot certification. It's time to finally get your airline transport pilot certificate. But what even is an airline transport pilot certificate? Let's be clear. This is not just another rating. This is the PhD of the skies. It's the highest level of aircraft pilot certificate one can obtain from the Federal Aviation Administration. Every single pilot you see in the cockpit of a major US airline, from the brand new first officer on a regional jet to the 30-year veteran captain on a 777 flying to Tokyo, every single one of them holds an ATP certificate. It is the legal and professional key that unlocks the flight deck door. Without it, you simply cannot be an airline pilot in the United States. So how do you get it? The journey to the ATP is a two-part trial by fire, designed to test not just your flying skills, but your knowledge, your judgment, and your ability to command under pressure. The first step is a mandatory course called the Airline Transport Pilot Certification Training Program, or ATP-CTP. You can't just study a book and take a test anymore. The FAA requires you to attend a rigorous, multi-day course that serves as a boot camp for the airline world. Think of it as drinking from a fire hose. For about a week, you'll be immersed in high-altitude aerodynamics, air carrier operations, advanced meteorology like jet streams and volcanic ash, and crew resource management, which is the art and science of how a flight crew works together as a team to solve complex problems. But the real core of the ATP-CTP is the simulator training. You'll spend hours in a non-moving simulator, called a fixed-base sim, learning the specific procedures for a transport category jet, like a Boeing 737 or an Airbus A320. Then you graduate to the main event, at least 10 hours in a full-flight Level D simulator. These are the multi-million-dollar, hydraulic-powered marvels that perfectly replicate the experience of flying a real airliner. You'll practice handling the aircraft in situations you'd never want to face in real life: severe icing, wind shear, and navigating complex emergencies. The goal of the ATP-CTP isn't to make you an expert on a 737 overnight. It's to expose you to the airline environment and ensure you have the foundational knowledge to operate safely within it before you even take the written exam. Once you've successfully completed the course, you receive a graduation certificate. Only then are you allowed to sit for the ATP written knowledge test. And this exam is a beast. It's 125 questions long, and it goes far beyond the what's the V-speed for this type of rote memorization. The questions are complex, scenario-based, and designed to test your decision-making. They'll give you a weather report, a flight plan, a maintenance issue, and ask you to determine the legal and, more importantly, the safest course of action. Passing this test is a major milestone. Proves you have the book smarts. But the airlines don't fly books. They fly airplanes. And that brings you to the final hurdle, the ATP practical test, the check ride. The ATP check ride is the most demanding examination of a pilot's career. The standards are brutally high. There's no room for error, no good enough. You must perform to the highest standards of precision and professionalism, from start to finish. The check ride consists of two parts: the oral exam and the flight. The oral exam can last for hours. You'll sit across from an FAA examiner, a highly experienced pilot whose job is to probe the absolute depths of your knowledge. They will grill you on aircraft systems, federal regulations, weather, flight planning, international procedures, and emergency management. They'll present you with a complex, multi-layered scenario. Something like, you're the captain. You're scheduled to fly from Denver to Chicago. There's a thunderstorm over Nebraska. Your co-pilot seems fatigued. And maintenance just told you one of the hydraulic pumps has a minor write-up. What do? Walk me through every decision, every regulation, every consideration. They're not just looking for the right answer. They're looking for how you think. They're assessing your command presence. Do you sound like a pilot? Or do you sound like a captain? If you pass the oral, you move to the flight portion, which is almost always conducted in that same Level D full flight simulator. Why a sim? Because the examiner needs to see you handle situations that are far too dangerous to replicate in a real aircraft with passengers. They need to see you perform under the worst possible conditions. The cabin door closes, the lights dim, and for the next few hours, that simulator is your reality. The pressure is immense. The examiner will throw everything at you. You'll start with a normal takeoff, but just as you're rotating, you'll hear a loud bang and the simulator will yell violently, "Engine fire." You have to calmly and precisely execute the engine fire memory items, fly the plane with one engine, secure the failed engine, talk to air traffic control, brief your cabin crew, and fly a perfect single-engine instrument approach back to the airport for a safe landing. And that's just the beginning. They'll fail your instruments. They'll give you a rapid decompression. They'll have you fly precision instrument approaches down to the absolute legal minimums, where you won't see the runway until you're just a few hundred feet above the ground. You'll have to manage multiple system failures at once, all while communicating effectively with your co-pilot, who is often another pilot taking their own check ride. It's a test of skill, a test of knowledge, and most of all, a test of your ability to remain calm, methodical, and in command when everything is going wrong. If you perform all of these maneuvers to ATP standards, the simulator will finally come to a stop. The examiner will look over and say the words you've been working towards for years. Congratulations, Captain. In that moment, you've done it. You have earned the Airline Transport Pilot Certificate. But here's where it gets a little more nuanced. There isn't just one type of ATP. There's the unrestricted ATP and the restricted ATP. And the difference is all about flight hours. The unrestricted ATP is the traditional, full-blown certificate. To be eligible for this, you need to be at least 23 years old and have a minimum of 1,500 hours of total flight time. This is the gold standard. It allows you to act as either a captain or a first officer at an airline. However, after the Colgan air crash in 2009, the FAA changed the rules, creating the 1,500-hour rule, but also providing specific pathways for pilots to reach the airline sooner. This led to the creation of the Restricted ATP, or RATP. The RATP allows a pilot to serve as a first officer at an airline with fewer than 1,500 hours, provided they meet specific criteria. The most common way to qualify for a restricted ATP is through education. If you graduate from an FAA-approved 4-year university program with a bachelor's degree in aviation, you can be eligible for an RATP with only 1,000 hours of total flight time. That's a massive 500-hour reduction, a huge advantage that can get you into an airline seat a year or more earlier than someone without that degree. If you graduate from an approved 2-year associate's degree program, the minimum is 1,250 hours. And there's a special category for military pilots. Because of the intensity and quality of their training, former military pilots can earn an RATP with just 750 hours. The key thing to remember about the restricted ATP is in its name. It's restricted. It only allows you to serve as a co-pilot or first officer. You cannot act as a captain, the pilot in command, until you meet the full 1,500-hour requirement for the unrestricted ATP. But it's an incredibly valuable stepping stone. It gets your foot in the door, gets you into the right seat of an airliner, and allows you to build that remaining flight time while earning a paycheck and gaining invaluable experience. So, whether you take the 1,500-hour route or qualify for a restricted certificate at 1,000 hours, the end goal is the same. That ATP certificate is your license to operate at the highest echelons of the aviation industry. It represents a level of trust, a commitment to safety, and a mastery of your craft that has been tested under the most strenuous conditions imaginable. You've proven you have the knowledge, the skill, and the judgment. You hold the golden ticket. Now comes the final question. You're qualified. You have the certificate in your hand. How do you actually get a job? How do you navigate the labyrinth of airline applications? And how do you survive the high-stakes, make-or-break airline interview? Let's start with the hard truth. Becoming qualified is only half the battle. The other half is convincing an airline that you're not just a number on a certificate, but a professional they can trust with a $100 million aircraft and the lives of everyone on board. The first gate you have to pass is digital. Almost every major and regional airline in the United States uses a centralized application service, most commonly airlineapps.com. This isn't like applying for a regular job. You're not just uploading a PDF resume. This is a meticulous line-by-line data entry of your entire life and career. Every flight school, every check ride, every hour you've ever flown, broken down by aircraft type, day, night, instrument, cross-country, everything. My advice here is simple but critical. Be perfect. A single typo, a miscalculated hour, an omitted address from 10 years ago can get your application flagged and kicked out by an automated system before a human being ever sees it. These systems are designed to thin the herd, and they are ruthless. You need to treat this application like it's your final exam. Print it out, have multiple people review it, check your math, and then check it again. This is your first impression, and it demonstrates your attention to detail, a non-negotiable trait for a pilot. While the application is a data dump, your actual resume is your highlight reel. It needs to be a clean one-page summary. Airlines don't care about your summer job in college. They care about your certificates, your ratings, your total flight time, your turbine time, and your pilot in command time. They want to see a history of progression and professionalism. And here's the insider secret. The most powerful line on that resume isn't your flight time. It's the line that says, "Internal recommendation from Captain John Smith. Networking is huge. Go to job fairs. Join professional pilot organizations. Be active on professional forums." An internal letter of recommendation from a current, respected pilot at that airline can vault your application from the bottom of a digital pile of thousands right onto the desk of a recruiter. It tells them someone they already trust is willing to vouch for you. That is worth its weight in gold. Let's assume your application is perfect, and you've secured a recommendation. The next step is usually a phone call or a video screen with an HR recruiter. This is not the technical grilling. This is the personality check. They are asking one fundamental question. Is this person a normal, professional human being? Can you communicate clearly? Are you personable? Do you sound like someone who could be trapped in a cockpit with another person for 8 hours without driving them insane? They'll ask you about your training history, why you want to work for their airline specifically, and they'll ask you to explain any red flags on your application, like a failed check ride. Be honest, be humble, and own your story. Explain what you learned from the failure and how it made you a better pilot. Trying to hide it or blame an examiner is an instant deal breaker. Pass that stage and you get the email, the one that makes your heart pound. You're invited to the company's headquarters for the formal interview. This is it, the big show. It's usually a full-day event, and it's a multi-stage gauntlet designed to test you from every possible angle. First, you'll sit down with a panel, typically a senior captain and an HR representative. They'll start by going through your logbook with a fine-tooth comb. They are looking for honesty, consistency, and professionalism. If your logbook is a sloppy mess with scratched-out entries, it reflects poorly on you. They'll ask you about specific flights, testing your memory and your truthfulness. Then comes the technical portion. This is where they find out if you truly know your stuff. The questions can range from broad to laser-specific. Explain the aerodynamic principles of a swept-wing aircraft at high altitudes. You're flying from Denver to Chicago. Talk me through the weather forecast and potential hazards. Describe the electrical system on the last multi-engine aircraft you flew. They don't just want the textbook answer. They want to see your thought process. They want to know you can apply your knowledge in a practical way. But the most important part of this interview isn't about aerodynamics. It's about judgment. They will hit you with a barrage of scenario-based behavioral questions. They almost always start with, "Tell me about a time when." "Tell me about a time you had a disagreement with a captain or instructor." "Tell me about a time you made a mistake in the cockpit." "Tell me about a time you had to operate under high pressure." They are testing your decision-making, your crew resource management, and your humility. For these, you must use the STAR method. Situation: briefly set the scene. Task: what was your goal or responsibility? Action: what specific steps did you take? And result: what was the outcome, and most importantly, what did you learn? They want to see that you are capable of self-assessment, that you learn from your errors, and that you know how to be part of a team. They are not hiring a lone wolf. They are hiring a crew member. The captain you're sitting across from is asking themselves, "Do I want this person in the right seat next to me at 2 in the morning in a thunderstorm with a problem?" Your answers to these questions will decide that. If you make it through the panel interview, you're not done. Now comes the final boss, the simulator evaluation. You'll be paired with another interviewee, someone you've never met, and put into a multi-million-dollar, full-motion simulator for an aircraft you've likely never flown. One of you will act as the pilot flying, the other as pilot monitoring, and you'll be given a flight profile to complete. Let me be clear. They are not expecting perfection. They know you don't know this airplane. What they are looking for is something far more important. Can you stay calm under pressure? Can you use the resources available, the other pilot, the checklists, air traffic control, to manage the situation? Do you have good airmanship and a solid instrument scan? They will introduce problems. An engine will fail after takeoff. A hydraulic system will malfunction. The weather will drop to minimums on your approach. They want to see how you react. Do you panic? Or do you calmly say, "My aircraft," delegate tasks to the other pilot, and work the problem methodically? They are evaluating your ability to function as a crew. How you interact with the other pilot, who is also being tested, is just as important as how you fly the airplane. They want to see teamwork, clear communication, and a command presence that is assertive but not arrogant. This is the ultimate test of your potential as a professional airline pilot. You walk out of that simulator, your shirt soaked with sweat, your mind buzzing, and then you wait. It could be hours, days, or even weeks. But eventually you get the call. If you were successful, you'll be given a conditional job offer. This means that, pending a background check, a drug test, and a medical review, you have a spot in an upcoming new hire class. You are officially in the pilot pool. You haven't started training yet, but you've made it. You've passed the trial by fire. You've proven you have what it takes. This entire process, from application to job offer, is a marathon of stress and scrutiny. It's designed to find the tiny percentage of pilots who have the right combination of technical skill, sound judgment, and professional demeanor to command an airliner. But with that job offer, the dream solidifies. It's no longer just a rating on a certificate. It's a tangible career path, a uniform, and a jet waiting for you. The only thing left is the most intense training program you will ever experience. They call it drinking from a fire hose, and frankly, that's an understatement. Imagine trying to memorize the entire phone book for a major city in 2 weeks, but instead of names and numbers, it's hydraulic pressures, electrical bus configurations, and emergency procedures where a single wrong answer could, in the real world, be catastrophic. This is airline indoctrination, or INDOC, and it's your first taste of the big leagues. You walk into a classroom with 20 or 30 other new hires. The energy is a strange mix of excitement and sheer terror. Piled on your desk is a stack of manuals so thick it looks like a Jenga tower. An iPad, preloaded with gigabytes of proprietary company information, sits next to it. For the next several weeks, this classroom is your world. Your life shrinks to a simple, brutal cycle. Study, eat, sleep, and repeat. You don't just learn about the airplane, the Airbus A320, the Boeing 737, or whatever regional jet you've been assigned. You learn the airline's airplane. You learn their specific procedures, their flows, their callouts. You learn the company's entire operational philosophy, a concept called crew resource management, and the intricate dance of federal aviation regulations that govern every single action you'll take. The days are long, filled with PowerPoint presentations that move at the speed of light. The instructors are seasoned captains, and they don't mince words. They've seen it all, and their job is to make sure you're ready for anything. You're not just learning systems, you're learning a new language. You'll spend hours in a paper tiger, a life-size poster of the cockpit, touching and pointing at switches, reciting procedures until the words lose all meaning and become pure muscle memory. Parking brake set, fuel control switches cut off, APU as required, over and over and over. Every few days there's an exam. The passing grade is usually 80 or 90%, and the pressure is immense. Fail a test and you might get a second chance. Fail again and you could be on a flight home, your dream ending before it even began. Your classmates become your family, your support system. You form study groups, quizzing each other late into the night, fueled by cheap coffee and the shared fear of failure. Then, after weeks of this academic pressure cooker, you graduate to the next level, the simulator. And let me be clear, this is not Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is a Level D full flight simulator, a $20 million marvel of engineering. It's the entire cockpit of your aircraft, mounted on a complex system of hydraulic and electric actuators. When you step inside and the door closes, you are, for all intents and purposes, in that jet. The visuals are so realistic you can get motion sickness. Every switch, button, and lever is real and functions exactly as it would in the aircraft. When you advance the thrust levers for takeoff, you are physically pushed back into your seat. When you hit turbulence, the entire box shakes and rattles you. Your first session is usually just getting a feel for it, flying the plane in normal conditions. But that doesn't last long. The real purpose of the simulator is to train for the absolute worst days of your life, in a perfectly safe environment. Your instructor, sitting at a panel behind you, becomes a puppet master of disaster. One moment you're climbing out peacefully and the next, bang! A loud, jarring explosion rocks the cockpit. Red lights flash. Alarms blare. Engine fire number 2. Your heart pounds in your chest, but your training kicks in. You and your simulator partner, another new hire, have to work together flawlessly. One of you flies the plane, the other runs the checklist. Engine fire or severe damage or separation checklist. You talk through every step, confirming every action. There is no room for ego. It's about process, procedure, and teamwork. Over the next few weeks, you will face every conceivable nightmare. You'll lose all your hydraulics and have to manually extend the landing gear. You'll have a cabin depressurization at 35,000 feet, forcing you to don your oxygen mask and execute a high-speed emergency descent. You'll try to land in a blizzard with only 500 feet of visibility. You'll have to deal with a medical emergency in the back while navigating a line of severe thunderstorms. You'll lose both engines and have to glide the multi-ton jet to a safe landing. Each session is a 4-hour mental marathon that leaves you physically and emotionally drained. You'll walk out of the simulator, your shirt soaked in sweat, questioning your life choices, only to go back to the hotel and study for the next day's session, where they'll throw something even worse at you. This crucible of stress is designed to forge you into a professional pilot. It strips away your bad habits and rebuilds you according to the airline's strict, standardized model. It teaches you to remain calm under unimaginable pressure, to trust your training, and to communicate effectively when everything is going wrong. Finally, the day of reckoning arrives, the check ride. This isn't just another simulator session. In the back, sitting in the instructor's seat, is not just a company instructor, but often an FAA examiner. This is the final exam for your aircraft type rating, the license to fly that specific model of jet. Your entire career has led to this moment. For 4 hours, you are tested on everything. You'll perform a normal takeoff, then be hit with an engine failure right at the most critical moment. You'll fly instrument approaches using different levels of automation, and then with no automation at all, you'll handle a barrage of malfunctions, all while communicating with air traffic control and your crewmate. The level of scrutiny is microscopic. Every altitude, every airspeed, every radio call must be perfect. At the end of it, the examiner will look at you, and after a moment of silence that feels like an eternity, they'll say the words you've been desperate to hear. Congratulations, you've passed. The wave of relief is indescribable. You are now officially type rated. But you're still not done. The final phase is called Initial Operating Experience, or IOE. This is where you fly the actual airplane with actual passengers. For your first several trips, you're paired with a check airman, a specially trained line captain whose job is to be your final instructor and evaluator in the real world. You walk through the airport in your new uniform, looking the part, but feeling like an imposter. You do your first walk around of the real massive jet, touching the cold metal, smelling the jet fuel. The scale of it is overwhelming. Then you're in the cockpit going through the same flows and checklists you practiced for hundreds of hours, but this time it's not a simulation. You call for pushback, you start the massive turbofan engines, and you hear them actually rumble to life. You taxi the giant machine out to the runway. The check airman gives you the controls. You have the aircraft. You wrap your hand around the thrust levers. You push them forward. The acceleration is immense, far more powerful than the simulator. You call V1, rotate, and pull back on the controls. And just like that, you are flying a 100,000-pound airliner, filled with over 100 people who are trusting you with their lives. For the next 25 to 50 hours of flight time, the check airman is your guide and mentor. You fly real routes, deal with real weather, real delays, and real air traffic controllers. You learn the little things that the simulator can't teach you. The art of a smooth passenger announcement, how to work with the flight attendants, the best way to get a gate at a busy airport. It's the final polish. Then, on your last leg of IOE after a smooth landing, the check airman will shake your hand and sign the final piece of paper. The training wheels are off. You are now officially a line pilot, a fully qualified first officer for a US airline. The next time you show up for work, you'll be paired with a regular captain, just another member of the crew, ready to start the journey you've spent years and a small fortune to begin. But that first day walking into the crew room is a feeling you'll never forget. The confidence you built over the last year feels like it's evaporating under the fluorescent lights. Everyone else seems to know exactly what they're doing. They're grabbing flight plans, joking with dispatchers, and talking in a shorthand of flight numbers and airport codes you don't fully grasp yet. You are, for the first time in a long time, the most junior, least experienced person in the room. The ink on your airline transport pilot certificate is barely dry, and the gold stripes on your epaulets feel less like an achievement and more like a costume. Your first few months, and maybe even your first year, will be defined by a single word: reserve. Welcome to the bottom of the seniority list. Being on reserve means you don't have a set schedule of flights. Instead, you have a schedule of days when you are on call, waiting for the phone to ring. Crew scheduling might call you at 2 a.m. for a 4 a.m. showtime to cover for a pilot who called in sick. They might call you to fly a 3-day trip to cities you've never heard of, leaving in 90 minutes. Or they might not call you at all and you'll spend 12 hours sitting at home or in your designated crash pad, unable to go more than a couple of hours away from the airport, your uniform pressed and your flight bag packed. Your life is now governed by an invisible force far more powerful than weather or air traffic control: the seniority list. Every pilot at the airline has a number, determined by their date of hire. That number dictates everything. The person hired one day before you will get their choice of vacation, base, and aircraft before you, for the rest of your respective careers at that company. As a new hire, you are at the absolute bottom. This means you get whatever is left over. You'll be based not where you want to live, but where the airline needs you. Maybe it's Detroit in the winter or Houston in the summer. And because the cost of living in a major city can be astronomical on a first-year pilot salary, you probably won't move there. Instead, you'll become a commuter. This is one of the most misunderstood and challenging aspects of an airline pilot's life. Commuting doesn't mean driving an hour to work. It means living in, say, Nashville, but being based in Newark. To get to work, you have to fly. You check flight loads on your own airline and others, looking for an open seat. If the flight is full, you list for the jump seat, a small, often uncomfortable extra seat in the cockpit. Your commute is entirely dependent on the availability of these seats, which is never guaranteed. You might have to leave for work a full day early just to ensure you make it on time for your trip. You might get stuck in your base city on your days off trying to get home. This is the grind. And where do you stay when you're on reserve in a city you don't live in? You stay in a crash pad. Imagine a house or an apartment rented by a dozen pilots. Bunk beds are crammed into every available room. It's a transient space, a cross between a college dorm and a submarine's bunk room, filled with people on completely different schedules. Someone is always sleeping, someone is always just getting in from a red-eye, and someone is always heating up a microwave meal. It's not glamorous. It's a tool for survival in the early years, a way to save money while you wait for your seniority to build. But then the phone rings. You have a trip. A 4-day, 12-leg journey up and down the East Coast. This is it. This is what you train for. You meet your captain, a 20-year veteran, in the crew room. This relationship is critical. They are your mentor, your final instructor, and the ultimate authority on the aircraft. You'll brief the weather, the flight plan, the fuel load. You'll talk about any potential threats, thunderstorms, runway closures, complex taxi instructions. There's a professional rhythm to it, a practice dance. You walk with the captain and flight attendants through the terminal. For the first time, you're not a passenger rushing to a gate. You are part of the machinery that makes it all work. The gate agent hands you the final paperwork. You board the jet, and the familiar scent of jet fuel and filtered air hits you. The cockpit is your office now. You run through the pre-flight checklists, your hands moving with a purpose that's been drilled into you for hundreds of hours. You set up the flight management computer, you listen to the ATIS, you get your clearance. The captain says, "Your leg. You'll be the one flying this segment." You taxi the 70-seat regional jet out to the runway, your heart pounding just a little. You line up, push the thrust levers forward, and feel the raw power press you into your seat. V1. Rotate. You pull back on the yoke and the aircraft lifts into the sky. Below 10,000 feet, the sterile cockpit rule is in effect. No non-essential conversation. It's a silent, focused ballet of call-outs and actions as you clean up the flaps and gear, engage the autopilot, and climb towards your cruising altitude. Once you level off, the sterile rule ends. You might chat with the captain about their career, about the industry. You'll watch the weather on the radar, monitor the fuel burn, and listen to the constant chatter of air traffic control. You are managing a complex system. A tube of metal and wires carrying dozens of souls through the sky at 500 miles per hour. The responsibility is immense, but the view is unbeatable. You land, taxi to the gate, and run the shutdown checklist. Then you do it all over again. And again. And again. At the end of the day, you're in a hotel in a new city. You grab dinner with the crew, or maybe you just collapse in your room exhausted. You wake up the next day and repeat the process. This is the job. It's not the constant, thrilling adventure some people imagine. It's a professional, procedural, and often repetitive occupation. The romance is in the sunrise from 37,000 feet, the precision of a perfectly executed instrument approach in bad weather, and the quiet satisfaction of a job done well. Now let's talk about the money. For decades, first-year regional pilot pay was notoriously low, sometimes below poverty level. Thankfully, that has changed dramatically. Due to pilot shortages, regional airlines have massively increased their starting pay. But it's crucial to understand how you're paid. You don't earn a fixed annual salary. You are paid an hourly rate for the time you are actually flying, or more accurately, for the time from when the cabin door closes to when it opens at the destination. This is called block time. As a reserve pilot, you might not fly very much. So airlines offer a minimum monthly guarantee, typically around 75 hours of pay. whether you fly 1 hour or 75. If you fly more, you get paid more. This means your income can fluctuate. A busy month where you get called a lot could mean a great paycheck. A slow month on reserve means you're only getting the minimum guarantee. And all the while, the six-figure student loan payments you took on to get here are coming due. The first few years are a financial balancing act, paying down debt while trying to live on a variable income, often while paying for a crash pad and commuting costs. It's a test of financial discipline and a stark reminder that this career is a long-term investment. But with every flight, your seniority number gets more powerful. Pilots hired after you are pushing you up the list. Every month, you're one step closer to a better schedule, a better base, and a better quality of life. You're no longer just building hours, you're building a future. And that future, it's a multi-act play. The first major promotion, the one every regional pilot is laser-focused on, is the upgrade to captain. This isn't just about moving from the right seat to the left seat. It's a fundamental shift in responsibility. As a first officer, your job is to be a vital, skilled crew member. As the captain, you are the final authority. The buck stops with you. The safety of every single soul on that aircraft rests squarely on your shoulders. The upgrade process is intense. It involves more training, more simulator checks, and proving to the airline and the FAA that you have the judgment, the knowledge, and the command presence to lead. But the moment you pin on that fourth stripe, the feeling is indescribable. Your pay gets a significant bump, and your influence on the operation grows. You are now the one making the final call on fuel, on weather diversions, on handling in-flight emergencies. It's a heavy weight, but it's the weight you've been training for your entire career. With a few years of captain time at a regional under your belt, you become an incredibly attractive candidate for the big leagues, the major airlines. This is the goal. This is the dream. Applying to a major like United, Delta, or American, or a cargo giant like FedEx or UPS, is like applying to the Ivy League of aviation. Your resume needs to be flawless. Your flight time, especially your time as captain, is your primary currency. But they're looking for more than just a good stick-and-rudder pilot. They're looking for leaders. The interview process is notoriously grueling. They'll scrutinize your entire life history. They'll ask you complex situational questions. The famous, "Tell me about a time when" scenarios. They want to know how you handle conflict with a crew member, how you manage a high-pressure situation, how you make decisions when there's no clear right answer. They're not just hiring someone to fly a plane. They're hiring a potential 25-year employee who will represent their brand and command a $500 million asset with hundreds of lives in the back. But if you get that call, the one offering you a class date, your entire life changes. Life at a major airline is a different universe from the regionals. The pay scale isn't just a step up. It's a launch into a different stratosphere. A senior wide-body captain can earn a salary that rivals that of a surgeon or a top-tier lawyer, often with 15 or more days off a month. The benefits, the retirement plans, the job security, it's all world-class. And the flying is what you dreamed of as a kid. You're no longer just flying up and down the East Coast. You're pushing back from the gate in San Francisco, knowing your next stop is Sydney. You're flying a Boeing 787 Dreamliner over the North Pole on your way to Dubai. You're watching the sunrise over the Atlantic Ocean on an overnight flight to Paris. The equipment is the most sophisticated, most capable technology in the sky. You go from flying a 70-seat regional jet to a 300-seat Boeing 777 or an Airbus A350. The scale of the operation is immense, and you are a critical part of a global transportation network. Your seniority number, which was so important at the regional, resets when you get to a major. But this time, it's the last seniority number you'll ever have. You're at the top of the mountain. And just like before, every month as pilots retire, you move up the list. That seniority dictates everything. What airplane you fly, where you're based, and the quality of your schedule. A junior pilot might be on reserve, flying trips to less desirable destinations on holidays. A senior captain 20 years in might be flying 3-day trips to Europe, with weekends and holidays off, living in their dream city. Now it's crucial to be honest here. This career is not a Hollywood movie. It comes with significant challenges and sacrifices. The lifestyle can be tough, especially on a family. You will miss birthdays. You will miss anniversaries. You will miss school plays and holidays. There's no way around it. You'll spend countless nights in sterile, anonymous hotel rooms in cities you'll only see from the window. Commuting can be a major source of stress. Unless you're senior enough to hold a base in the city you live in, you might have to fly as a passenger to get to work. This means waking up at 3 a.m. to catch a flight to New York, just so you can start your 4-day trip. It adds time and uncertainty to your work life. And then there's the health aspect. To fly, you must hold an FAA medical certificate. This means your health is your wealth. You have to be vigilant about your diet, your fitness, and your mental well-being. A condition that might be a minor inconvenience for someone with a desk job could be career-ending for a pilot. The pressure to stay healthy is constant. But for every challenge, there is a reward that, for the right person, makes it all worthwhile. The travel benefits are, frankly, unbelievable. You, your family, and sometimes even your parents can fly almost anywhere in the world for pennies on the dollar. Want to take a spontaneous weekend trip to London? Go for it. Feel like spending a week in Hawaii? Find a flight with an open seat. The world literally opens up to you in a way that's hard to comprehend. The community is another huge perk. There's an incredible bond between pilots. It's a shared experience that few people understand. The ability to jump seat, to catch a free ride in the cockpit of another airline's flight to get to work or go on vacation, is a testament to this trust and camaraderie. It's a brotherhood and sisterhood built on mutual respect and shared responsibility. And then there's the office view. It never ever gets old. You will see more sunrises and sunsets from 38,000 feet than most people will see in a lifetime. You'll fly over majestic mountain ranges, watch thunderstorms build from a safe distance, and see the northern lights dance across the sky on a polar route. It's a perspective on our planet that is reserved for a very small number of people. It's humbling and awe-inspiring every single time. So we come back to the original question. What exactly is a commercial pilot? A commercial pilot isn't just a person who flies planes for money. It's a professional who has dedicated years of their life, and a small fortune, to mastering a complex and demanding craft. It's a leader, a decision-maker, and a manager of risk. It's someone who can remain perfectly calm when everything is going wrong. It's someone who operates with a level of precision and discipline that is almost unmatched in any other field. The journey is long. It's expensive. It demands sacrifice, patience, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. There will be moments of doubt, frustration, and exhaustion. You'll question if the endless studying and the low pay in the beginning is worth it. But if you have that spark, if you've ever looked up at the sky and felt a pull you can't explain, then the answer is yes. It is worth it. Because being a commercial pilot is more than a career. It's an identity. It's the fulfillment of a dream. It's being entrusted with the most precious cargo in the world, people's lives, and delivering them safely time and time again. It's a life of adventure, responsibility, and a perpetual sense of wonder, all from the best office on Earth.